What's up guys, today's video is on the top 3 best Sony phones in 2024. Through extensive research and testing I've put together a list of options that'll meet the needs of different types of buyers, so whether it's price performance or its particular use, we've got you covered. For more information on the products, I've included links in the description box down below which are updated for the best prices. Now let's get started. Number 3, Sony Xperia 1.6. With its new shape and simplified software, there are fewer reasons to reject the Xperia 1.6 and enjoy its variable telephoto camera, bright screen, and enhanced connectivity over rivals. But the cost of the phone, and the fact it's not available in the US, are two big problems that could spoil all the other benefits for a typical buyer. Being conventional can be both a blessing and a curse, which is why the Sony Xperia 1.6 is trying once again to balance what users want from a smartphone and what it thinks they actually need. Sony's been refining a unique look for its phones throughout the lifespan of the Xperia. But this year, the frosted glass back and ridged edges you may recognize hide a major change. Xperias up to now have been equipped with 21:9 displays, designed to show widescreen content at its best. But because most phones center their viewing experience around 16:9 photos and video, this has meant Sony phones have been uncomfortably long and narrow to use under normal circumstances. With the Xperia 1.6, Sony's decided to join the herd and has gone for a 6.5-inch, 120Hz OLED screen that fits the typical 19.5:9 smartphone profile. You get a 48MP main camera and 12MP ultra-wide and selfie cameras on the Xperia 1.6, but the star of the show is the 12MP telephoto camera, which comes with a variable zoom between 3.5x and 7.1x magnification. This has always been the party piece of Xperia 1 phones, but it's managed its widest zoom range ever here. Sony's chosen the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 paired with 12GB RAM to power the Xperia 1.6, putting it on roughly equal footing with equivalently expensive Android phones. There's a 5000 mAh battery inside the Xperia 1.6, which drained by an average of 20% in my 3-hour YouTube streaming test. Number 2, Sony Xperia 5V. The Xperia 5V keeps its predecessor's shape, long-lasting battery, and focus on photo and video capture and editing. However, Sony has dropped the telephoto camera, while sticking the display with a static refresh rate and heavy bezels. The Sony Xperia 5V is the most regular, user-friendly Xperia I've tried to date, and that's a genuine compliment. Sony phones can't seem to help testing users with a boatload of idiosyncrasies compared to other phones. And while those are still definitely present in the Xperia 5V, Sony seems to have made an appreciable effort to make this phone a bit more conventional by dropping the price in exchange for losing a camera. Bezels, that's all I could see when I first looked at the Xperia 5V. It's seriously chunky for a phone that's on sale in 2024, although the bezel up top at least gives Sony a place to keep the front camera without taking up any of the active screen space. One notable difference is that the Xperia's refresh rate can only be set to a static 60Hz or static 120Hz. That's not as efficient as the adaptive LTPO system on the Galaxy S24, which can scale down to 1 Hz for greater power efficiency when needed. Durability isn't a worry for the Xperia. It uses Gorilla Glass Victus 2 front and back, and is rated both IP65 and IP68, Sony's way of showing off that its phones are water and dust resistant whether you submerge or spray the device. Looking at the Xperia 5V's basic camera specs, 52MP main and 12MP ultra-wide camera on the back, a 12MP sensor up front, gives the misleading impression this phone has similar capabilities to other cheaper flagship phones. Sony fitted a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 into the Xperia 5V, the best Android silicon available at the time of the phone's release. This is a chip that's been since replaced with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, but the Gen 2 still offers respectable power. Providing the all-important juice for the Xperia 5V is a 5000 mAh cell, which is a lot of battery for a phone of this size. Number 1, Sony Xperia 1V. The Sony Xperia 1V is a likable phone that shows Sony likes to do a few things differently. You don't see a flagship phone with a headphone socket too often. However, you pay a premium for its unique qualities. The Sony Xperia 1V is the best Sony phone for 2023. It's a great example of how Sony's approach to phone design is a little different to that of the competition. And a big part of this approach is keeping a lot of older things the same as they always were. This handset is a lot like the Xperia 1.4, but with a new processor and some other tweaks. If you bought last year's model, you should feel pretty good about that. The Sony Xperia 1V adopts the same design style as all the previous Sony Xperia flagships, the monolith. It's a squared-off slab. And while it means this phone doesn't exactly scream new, it is recognizably Sony in a way other manufacturers, other than Apple, can't quite achieve. The Sony Xperia 1V has a 6.5-inch OLED screen that mines the same excesses as the previous models in the series, a very tall shape and ultra-high resolution. This is a 4K screen with a 3840x 1644 pixel count. Color and maximum brightness are great, and the OLED panel has effectively perfect contrast by design. The display's refresh rate also peaks at 120 Hz. The Sony Xperia 1V runs Android 13 with a light Sonimade interface and a bunch of wallpapers that bring the software that signature Sony look. However, there's little to offend or annoy here. The Sony Xperia 1V has 3 rear cameras. It's an unusual and high-end array, the most eye-catching of the 3 being a 3.5-5.2x 12MP zoom with a true optical zoom lens. Lens elements visibly move as you move between those 2 focal lengths. Such a zoom has only been seen in a handful of phones since smartphones became a thing. Our other 2 lenses are a 12MP ultra-wide and a 48MP primary wide camera. All 3 of these, and the selfie camera up front, use Sony sensors. The Sony Xperia 1V has a 5000 mAh battery, just like the Sony Xperia 1.4. Thanks for watching. Like the video and don't forget to subscribe.